All right, Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Heather. Good evening, everyone. We'll begin this evening by opening our public hearing. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Robert Barley,
Here.
Walter Liss,
Here.
Craig Eckert,
Here.
Patricia Brill,
Here.
Stephen McIntyre, Matthew Borkowski,
Here.
and James Gruner as chair.
Here. Thank you, Heather. A public hearing is being held before the Henrietta Planning Board today, Tuesday, February 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the main meeting room at 475 Calkins Road in Henrietta, New York, 14467, to hear all persons with regard to the following application. Number PB 331, Riverton Parcel E subdivision for preliminary subdivision approval of a 3-lot subdivision of roughly 26 acres for the purpose of creating a conservation area to be donated to the town located at Moore Road and Scottsville West Henrietta Road in a planned unit development zoned district. This public hearing is being held so that you, the general public, can present your opinions to the Henrietta Planning Board regarding subdivision concerns, specifically limited to trees, the lots themselves, open space, the infrastructure, utilities, sidewalks, and flood-prone areas. May I ask who is here representing application number PB 331, please?
That'd be Joshua Saxton, Pastor Associates.
Joshua, you said?
Yep, Joshua Saxton, Saxton.
Thank you, Joshua. The floor is yours, sir.
Can I share my screen? I don't know if that's an option. Right here. Can everyone see the map shown?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this parcel, as saying, is located on Scottsville West Henrietta Road and Moore Road. It's kind of an odd shaped parcel, as you can see. And if this area kind of looks familiar, it's because a residential development that has been presented to this planning board has been kind of going on for a couple of months, almost over a year now. And it kind of as part of that site plan review and approval process, a part of that is the subdivision of the total parcel. So as shown on the map here, it's segmented into 3 separate lots. Lot 1 and 3, kind of on the western and the eastern side. Those will be where that residential development is going. And this proposed lot 2, that's kind of segmenting those 2 lots and separating them. That would be the lot that will be donated to the town. Not shown on this map is, this is a part of the residential development, a trail that's going to be going through this lot 2 that will basically connect not only the lots, but also surrounding sidewalks in the area to kind of make a more connected feel for the whole development. So yeah, it's kind of as I said, an odd shaped parcel, and this kind of middle lot 2 isn't buildable and wasn't proposed to be built at all as a part of the residential development. So that's the point of the subdivision, is to take this lot out and donate to the town, and then kind of keep the lot 1 and 3 for the residential developments in the site. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Joshua. I see the room is pretty empty, but I'll ask the question. Are there any residents that have comments or questions? And there's nobody in the room, Heather. So do you have anybody online?
I am not seeing anyone. Oh, hold on. I have one hand raised. I'm going to allow Lori to talk. 1 second. Lori, just unmute yourself and you can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks. I just had a question about lot 3, not so much lot 2. So I don't want to interject with the lot 2 proposal, but I did want to ask a question about lot 3 when I could.
Okay, you may now, Lori.
Okay, I apologize, but the first I was seeing of a drawing of the buildings was when the letter came out about the lot 2. And I noticed that The entrance, well, we knew the entrance to lot 3 is right across from our house. We are on Mickens Bend, which was a concern, and I've raised that before, but now I've also noticed that the design is showing that the apartment buildings are going to have their driveway and garages facing our house as well. So not only are we going to have headlights coming from the entrance and exit at night, but we will also have people pulling in and out of their garages in that building that's facing Scottsville West Henrietta Road. And my request is, can we possibly turn that building around so that the back of the houses or the apartments are facing the road rather than their garages?
Joshua, are you able to address that?
Yeah, so the current development of, lot 3 and 1, still under review of the town, still being designed.
Okay,
There are some site constraints in this area. Mainly, there's a gas main that kind of runs, maybe you can zoom in, show you. A gas main that is this kind of in the area that you were talking about, in this kind of upper northwestern corner of the site?
no, so you see where Mickens Bend is?
Yeah, up here.
Our house is right 2 in from there. So
Okay.
your exit entrance into lot 3 is literally right across from our house.
Mm-hmm.
And the one meeting I asked if at all possible if it could be moved, because we're going to have headlights literally showing into our dining room. But I was told no, there was nothing that could be done with regards to could it be moved. But then I noticed, like I said, when I went out, when this notice was sent out and I saw drawings that the building is facing Scottsville West Henrietta Road with the garages facing that road.
And that's the building that's located kind of in this
Yeah.
area and
Yep.
goes there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, there are some site constraints, kind of shown here, some wetland areas that we can't disturb,
Yep.
as well as this gas main that kind of runs through the property. After talking with RG&E, they don't really want that relocated and kind of a sensitive area, since it is a sizable gas main. So, it's fine with our road kind of in this area. So, because it's not, a structure that's going to be over the gas main.
Yep.
But if we were to flip the house or the building and the road, as you're suggesting, we'd, be impacting that easement as well as the gas main. So I think that was one of the reasons why we didn't flip it and have it face away.
Yeah,
So
and I get that. Then I guess, there's only so much you can do, but I just feel like between the entrance and exit and the way, every other building is not facing the roads. It's
Yeah.
just that one. Then I asked for some sort of screening, and I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, we
good
are
screening.
Yeah. We are maintaining some of the existing vegetation because we're not planning to disturb pretty much right along the right of way, other than where our proposed entrance is. Kind of in this corner here, we're not proposing any additional tree removal. And there's pretty healthy screening there as well. But we can also look into maybe adding some additional trees to shield headlights coming across from this property, across Scottsville West Henrietta Road over into the adjacent parcels. So that's something we can look into to provide more screening.
That would be great. Thank you. We've done the same over in our property to try to shelter it as well. But like I said, I was surprised to see that the garages were going to be facing our house as well. It's tough enough with a road in addition. So it's just.
Thanks, Josh. And Lori, I will tell you that this board is very sensitive to those types of things. In the past, when we've had applications, we've looked at buffering or berms or things like that to be cognizant of the neighbors. And one project that comes to mind is the Wegmans, the new Wegmans. And all the cars turning out into Calkins with those houses right across the street. So that would be something that we definitely would look at. But at this point, I'd like to recognize Mr. Martin. He has some comments to make.
Yeah, actually, Joshua, again, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. I think you kind of nailed it. I know there's that existing hedgerow was going to stay. And I think also, as you mentioned, if we need to provide some additional trees for some buffering, to help shield the headlights, I think that's a great idea.
Lori, anything else, ma'am?
No, thank you. I appreciate the consideration.
Okay, yep. Thank you for participating. Is there anybody else online?
I do not have anybody at this time.
Okay, now the chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
welcome.
No, I don't have any comments. We're just specifically on a subdivision here. So,
Correct. Yep.
I do recall that this project already received final site plan approval. So they were actually already given a green light to go and start. They wished to start, and then they pulled back when pricing,
Okay,
some conflicts came in the way. So we had a meeting and they were going to go ahead and start putting a shovel in the ground.
okay.
So I have no other comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Nothing for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Mr. Chairman, for parcel 2, what's the purpose for the donation? Is that to have access to something?
I can interject with that. So right now, the school district owns the parcel directly north of Lot 2. And the hope is in the future that the town can maybe trade some land with the school district, because the school district needs a certain square footage or a certain acreage of area before they can do like an elementary school, which is, I think, what they're looking for in this case. So, excuse me. So I think, like I said, at some point, we'll probably do a land swap, but it'd have to be certainly after this is all finalized and we know which land we want to swap it for.
Okay, so they need more land for the elementary school if they build it.
Right. I think you need maybe 9 or 10 acres, and they don't have it with the parcel they have now.
Mhm.
But with this additional space, even though it's a little odd shaped, it gives them enough space for I think that's the state that wants that certain area.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. The chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I just had a question about the access easement to be provided to Lot 2. Where is that? The pedestrian access easement needed to provide it from Lot 1 to Lot 3. Where is it going to
So
be?
yeah, it's not shown in this plan because it hasn't been 100% finalized. That's kind of going hand in hand with the residential developments. As I mentioned, there's going to be a trail that's proposed to go through lots 1, 2, and 3. So that easement would fall along wherever that alignment of the trail goes, and it'll kind of bisect this Lot 2, kind of in the middle, is where it's located now. But that's still the location still being finalized.
Be wide enough for pedestrians as well as bicycles.
Yep, yeah, it'll encompass the entire trail.
And how were federal wetlands protected? How do you protect those?
So yeah, so on this Lot 3 side, I believe on our plans, we kind of have a orange construction fence that's, shown around the delineated points of the wetland, as well as, double rows of silt fence to avoid any sediment entering the wetland. So that's kind of our standard for delineating and protecting the wetlands whenever we're working on them.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. Heather, one more time, anybody online?
Still nothing here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if there are no more comments regarding this application, I therefore close the public hearing. The planning board will now adjourn the public hearing of tonight's meeting. And we will move right into our workshop. Welcome to the workshop meeting. Henrietta Planning Board on Tuesday, February 15th. Members present: Rob Barley, Matt Borkowski, Patricia Brill, Craig Eckert, Walter Liss, Dan Mistrella, Planning Board Attorney, town staff, Chris Martin, Director of Planning and Engineering, and Chris Hauser, Deputy Director of Engineering and Planning. First item on this evening's agenda will be the minutes from the January 18th, 2022 meeting. Are there any comments or concerns with the minutes? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. We have a sufficient second, please.
Second.
Mr. Liss? Thank you.
Mr. Barley.
Oh, Mr. Barley, I'm sorry. I heard it out my right ear, but all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Thank you. And now we will move into application number PB 331, Riverton Parcel E subdivision for preliminary subdivision approval of a 3-lot subdivision plus or minus 26 acres for the purpose of creating a conservation area to be donated to the town located at Moore Road and Scottsville West Henrietta Road in a planned unit development zoned district. We heard Joshua's commentary before. Joshua, is there anything else you'd like to add to what you spoke about a few moments ago?
Nothing that's coming to mind. If the board has any other questions, I'm definitely here to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, the chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
No, Mr. Chairman, no additional comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
So I do have a couple questions. And I'm, forgive me, I'm kind of skimming over them right now. Because I am curious. I haven't seen exactly where the proposed road is that is going to be going up into Dickens Bend.
Not shown probably.
Yeah, the subdivision map only shows, just the lot lines and easements and things.
On the other plan that was approved.
Other plan, okay.
Yeah, this plan did get final approval, but
Thank you.
I'm speaking out of turn, sir. I'm sorry.
That's right.
No, I appreciate it.
I can pull up the plan right now. See if.
Kind of identified the walking trail that would connect the two as well.
Yeah, I would show that. Wait me 1 second. Can you see the
Yeah, there we go.
updated plan? So yeah, this is where that entrance is located. Ideally, we would have, gone it, right adjacent and across the street from Mickens Bend, but given that wetland area, we weren't able to, create that intersection that we wanted. And these are kind of that existing vegetation that we're going to maintain. So it kind of encompasses all of those driveways.
Thank you for clarifying, because when the woman that spoke that lives the second house on Mickens said the lights would be going right into her dining room, I just couldn't understand that. But if it's moved farther to the east, then she must be on the south side, if you will. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. There's not, there isn't really much we can do with the entrance because we can't really screen that at all while providing access to the road. But, we are keeping as much of the existing vegetation in that northwest corner to shield any lights that may be coming from the driveways or cars leaving the road. So.
There is quite a bit of vegetation on the north side of the road as well. If memory serves me correctly, that would be kind of on the Mickens Bend side of the road.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty thick right there because you can't really see those houses when I'm driving by.
Yeah, and this corner is pretty well vegetated too now. We're not proposing to touch that at all. So
Deciduous though, that's where
Yes.
the problem comes in the winter and cold months. Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Just a couple
Yep.
more things if I may. And then I see the sidewalk area on there as well. Okay, thank you for that. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. The chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
No comments.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
All set, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Chair will recognize Mr. List.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I went on the Park Grove Realty website, and I would encourage anybody that, anybody out there that would be listening to check it out, because Park Grove has some very beautiful properties all over from Ithaca to Clifton Springs and some in Rochester. And by the looks of it, they do a fairly nice job, and I look forward to this project being completed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anything from town staff?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Anything final from you, Joshua?
I am all set.
Okay, terrific. Well, we've got a seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a subdivision application by Park Grove Realty LLC It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for preliminary subdivision approval of a 3-lot subdivision of plus or minus 26 acres for the purpose of creating a conservation area to be donated to the town located at Moore Road and Scottsville West Henrietta Road in a planned unit development zone district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed subdivision improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do we have a significant second, please?
I'll second it.
That was Mr. List this time?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have seeker. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll, okay, there goes my verbiage. Put forward a motion to approve PB 331.
Very good. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Eckert. Do we have a sufficient second, please?
Second?
Mrs. Brill, thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is for preliminary subdivision approval.
Yes, it is.
right.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have seeker. I'm sorry, we have the motion. Motion is approved. Joshua, thank you. You're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. The next item was withdrawn this evening, so we're going to move right into application number 22001. It's a proposed urgent care facility for final site plan approval of a 7,348 square foot medical office building located at 1300 Jefferson Road in an industrial zone district. Matt, welcome this evening, sir.
Good evening, Chairman. How's everyone doing?
Good, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's okay.
Good evening, Matthew Oates with Benderson Development. Tonight, proposing a 7,348 square foot medical office building. The site is at 1300 Jefferson Road. It is in front of the existing Residence Inn. It is the area right up front. It is where there were 3 previous hotel pods that were demolished when we did the Residence Inn expansion approximately 7 to 8 years ago. Since then, that section has been left as grass and a mowed area, and we left the existing parking lot in front of it for now. What we're proposing to do is demolish that portion of the site. We're going to remove all the existing site features, take out the parking lot that is there, and do a new 7,000 square foot medical office. We are proposing to do 2 parking lots, one in front, one in the rear. There'll be 24 parking spaces in front. There'll be 26 parking spaces in the rear. With the architecture, we are proposing a front entrance element and then also a rear entrance element as well. We're kind of proposing from the architecture standpoint for the 2 entrances that kind of play off. For the site, we kind of have stone masonry front entrance that we're proposing. It's got a curved roof line at the top that we're then incorporating into the curved canopy at the back of the building. So it's a slightly different look for the rear entrance, but it's still bringing in the same architectural feature. The building is a little bit different in architecture from the hotel that is there and the Dunkin' Donuts. It doesn't match it, but it is similar in regards to the color, some of the materials used. So it plays off of it while not being just the exact same building from an architecture look. In addition, there is a wetland as well, a DEC regulated wetland on the west side of the property. We have submitted to the New York State DEC for a wetland buffer impact permit that was submitted in December. We have received initial comments back from the DEC. They've requested that we add some additional plantings in the buffer area and also look at installing a rain garden in there as well, just to kind of offset the buffer impacts. We are not proposing any additional impacts beyond what was previously there from the pod, so we're not pushing farther into the buffer. But since we're doing work in the buffer, we're still doing the impacts that are necessary so we can get that permit. In regards to the utilities, there won't be a new water service off of the main. We're going to be coming in after the existing hot box that is this section here behind the existing Dunkin' Donuts building. So it'll be off of the existing service that's already there. Same thing with the sanitary sewer. That's going to tie into our site before the pump station that's there. So it's going to be utilizing the existing pump station that's there as well. So there won't be a new public sewer connection either. The drainage system will be a closed drainage system. It's proposed to run through a bioretention bed behind this site. Our SWIP analysis is having us remove the small existing pond that's there and instead use the bioretention bed. We're going to look at, just based on the DEC comments, doing a little bit of a splitting of that design and adding in a second rain garden on the west side as well, just to provide some buffering to the wetlands that they requested. We'll probably look at taking some of the roof drainage there as well. We'll resubmit that updated design for the town engineering staff to look at. And then the drainage continues to the north of the site, and then it runs through the existing ponds that are all the way in the back that run behind the hotel. We are in receipt of the town comments, gone through all of them. There was nothing in the comments that we saw any concerns with. A couple of the highlights, we have the Vanguard comments in regards to the SWIP and to the floodplain. We'll provide updated floodplain calculations to the town showing that there is no net reduction in storage below the, I believe it's the 499 contour for the floodplain elevation that is there. It was also mentioned about the DEC permit. We'll provide correspondence to the DEC, to Chris in the town, and we'll provide a copy of the buffer impact permit that we receive as well. One of the conditions that the DEC has prior to issuance of that permit is getting a copy of the seeker from the town. So it's kind of one of those things. They won't issue us approvals until they see the town's done their review on that one. But as part of it, we can provide a copy to the town as well prior to the town providing signatures on plans or anything like that. That's not an issue at all. In regards to the bioretention bed depth, we have previously received approval from the DEC to use the 1.5 foot depth and not 2.5 foot. So we'll provide a copy of that approval we've received to Chris as well. We will be adding a dumpster to the back. So the dumpster is going to here, we're going to do a composite board structure instead of a wood structure. We feel it looks a little nicer than wood, lasts longer than wood, not quite as expensive as some of the masonry ones that we did. So we found that it's a nice way to upgrade the architectural look without spending a substantial amount of money like the masonry ones that we have like behind Starbucks and Market Square, things of that nature. In regards to Chris's comments, there was nothing in there that was a concern. We'll be able to address all the utility, bringing in all the additional details that are needed. I have his comments on the plan, so we'll go through and address all of that as well. We'll make the application for the floodplain development permit and get all that paperwork done and addressed as well. And then I've given the Stantec comment letter for the landscape and to our landscape architect. They'll go through, get everything addressed, vary the species some more, get some more native plantings in there as well. We are maintaining the 20-foot buffer along the front required by code, doing that landscaping as well. And then we are matching also for the parking lot. Right now, when they're on there, you'll notice the parking lot's a little offset from the Dunkin' Donuts. We are pulling it forward a little bit to match up, and then they'll match and mirror exactly. Overall, we're excited to get this parcel. It's kind of been sitting there for about 6-7 years to get this done and get this property fully developed, and happy to answer any questions.
Great.
the board
Thank you,
has.
Matt. I presume that it's the U of R Urgent Care is going to have their own standalone building. Is that correct?
We do not have a signed lease or anything that we
Okay.
can say, but
All right.
yes,
Yeah,
I won't
thank you.
tell you no, but yeah, we don't
Yeah,
have any signed
understood.
lease.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
The chair just wants to acknowledge Councilwoman Sefranek is in attendance this evening. Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the board. The chair will recognize Mr. Barley. We'll start with you, sir.
So we're building this in hope of getting a tenant.
Hope
I
is
know
the
these
rum.
things have been selling like hot cakes. I know you're not gonna have a problem with it. I don't have any questions. I have anything.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I know you can't tell us maybe who the tenant is, but do you have any specifics about what kind of traffic they'll need? For instance, if this is a medical facility and they're drawing blood, you could have hundreds of people going through there every day. So do we know for sure what kind of usage we're going to do or what kind of traffic we're going to have?
The usage is projected to be an urgent care facility, not a blood lab or
Okay.
anything like that. So we're expecting the traffic patterns to be similar to what is out there today for a more of a typical retail medical use, which we have right on the other side.
Okay, so it's not going to be a conveyor belt of people other than if there's something horrible going around. And I see the elevations here. Well, they tell you a lot. I just want to make sure that we don't, that's a busy road. So I'm a little worried about adding this thing. However, seems like a great usage. It ties in with what's next to it. So I think it's a good usage for the space. That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it's already part of a parking lot meant to be a site. So I think it's a good use of the facility. I went through all the comments. The only one that kind of stuck out, which you didn't address, but you said you didn't have any problem with the comments itself, was the sanitary going under the bioswale. So we'll take a look at that. And when you get it opened up, you can see what it is. I do recall, not that this is maybe a good time to fix something. It's an unrelated issue. I thought that there was still a punch list on residents in
There
that.
could be.
And I think if this goes through, it'd be a great time to get out there and just see if we can take a look at it and get that closed up too.
If there is, would you actually be able to provide a
Yeah.
copy? Because what I'll actually do is I'll take that punch list, I'll make it part of the set of plans. And then we'll have our contractor actually have that
Okay.
bid it, and then it'll be part of the contract,
Well,
and then we can get that closed out.
And
Yeah,
man, I
100%.
appreciate that. I know you'll work with me to get
Yep.
it done. So I don't worry about too many other plan changes or anything. We can, the inspector that I'll have on site will be the one that did the inspection for residents. We can incorporate it if that's okay with you later.
Yeah,
I'll
and
definitely
it's
share
even
it.
not for the town. It's literally more for us. I could be with my construction guys.
Okay.
It's on your plans to do these 10
Okay,
items.
good.
Go get it
Well, I'll
done.
certainly make sure that that's there. I did want to double check and make sure it wasn't something you already, completed yet. I didn't get a chance to go through my emails and confirm that. So
Yep.
I wanted to make sure that that was the case as well. So there was the conflict or thing I saw was the sanitary. I just go into also that northern parking lot. I mean, is that per code or is that something that you need?
The northern parking lot. So this one,
Yeah.
there, yeah, that's something that we do think we would need. Yes.
Okay. I just hate to see sometimes over pavement of parking lots when things, I understand traffic too, but some of the other urgent cares that we have sometimes have 10, 12 cars, sometimes have 2.
Yeah.
So, and I know the staff that you're trying to provide some space for as well. I just would hate to see us pave too much just because it meets a code. If we can land bank something or that might give you some more green space for some of that wetland mitigation that you're looking at to try to provide. Or
What I'll do is I'll talk to my executive who's handling this one and just see if it's something, do we want to be like, hey, it's approved. However, the town would like us to hold off on installing it until it's dated, show it as land banked or something. I'll definitely see if that's
yeah,
something.
I'm certainly not
that we
asking you
can
to go against the code, but we've
Yeah.
done land banking before, and if it saves
Yeah.
you a couple bucks with some, couple hundred square feet of pavement that you
Yep.
want to put into a wetland mitigation, I think that would be smarter if that was the case.
Yeah, okay.
So
We'll
other than
definitely
that,
take a
Mr.
look at
Chairman,
that.
that's one of the comments, things that came up with my review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eckert. The chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
A lot of work goes into these site plans. From an engineering perspective, I'll say that, everything looks great. But my gut concern is I really don't see a need for this project as presented. I don't know how many square feet of medical office vacancy there is in Monroe County and specifically Henrietta. But I would venture to say it's a lot. Do you have that data? How many square feet of vacancy there are existing now?
In Monroe County, I do not know.
You don't know.
Nope.
And yet we're presenting over 7,000 square foot facility. And you don't even have a solid tenant yet.
I didn't know. What I said was I didn't have a signed lease.
Signed lease.
But so I didn't have a signed lease. I don't have a tenant's name that I can state. What I can tell you though is Benderson has a track record for 15 years with the town, and not Benderson as a company, me personally standing before the board and presenting our projects, going through this and having the history At this point, we are not in a position where we want to put up a building and then have it just sit vacant. If that happens, it's very rare that it does. So we don't have medical office to rent ourselves in this area. We believe we have a user for this, that we will be occupying this project when it's done. So we also own and operate the hotel. We don't just develop it and then provide it to another operator. That's our own. So we want to make sure our sites, our hotel sites are top notch and that we don't just have a vacant building sitting there. So our expectation is that we will have a building up, a user in there, and be generating more tax revenue for the town in that area.
What's going to happen to the UR, to the MC, the urgent care that's next to the Dunkin' Donuts now?
If and when there's no user in there, we will turn around and have that space leased out as well. I can tell you space on Jefferson Road from Highland Drive down to Winton is very, very popular
Oh, yeah, it is popular.
for
You
a
also see
lot of
of
tenants.
signs that say,
Yep.
build to suit, medical office vacancy, build to suit. Yeah. And I don't want to see that on Jefferson Road, that big building with, RGH just recently temporarily closed several of their
Yes.
urgent cares
Yep.
because of staffing issues, et cetera, and the pandemic related. I don't want to see that here on Jefferson Road.
100% agree. We don't want to spend the money to build the building and then have it sit vacant either.
Well, I hope that happens. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. List. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
And that, I think you answered my question. Walt brought up the other urgent care. I was surprised when I saw the words urgent care and then I honed in on the address and I'm like, wait a minute, my urgent care is right there. So without stating the obvious and you don't have anything signed, there is a strong possibility that someone might move out of an existing building and maybe move into a larger
Correct.
building and so, okay.
Yes.
That answers all kinds of gray areas I had. Thank you for that. That makes sense and that makes me feel a lot better than when I
Yeah,
went.
and
in
I
said,
do apologize for
No,
for
you
having
can't.
to
We
be
get
a
that.
little
No,
cryptic.
no,
I
no,
don't like
we-
doing that, but
We understand. When I was first looking at it, I'm thinking, my goodness, are they putting an RRH right next to a strong urgent care? And we're gonna have battle of the urgent cares? What? But that makes
And
sense.
we put you in a bad spot, but you did a good job dancing around. We get it. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you didn't
that's
say
in the minutes
anything.
now. I can be like, I didn't say.
Yeah, you didn't say anything, but you made it make a little more sense. And
Okay,
that was
yeah.
quite helpful to me
Yeah.
personally. So I thank you for that. That is all I had. Thank you. And I actually agree with the land banking with the parking. So for my notes, I do have that listed down. And will you be getting back to Craig on that? Who will you be getting
can-
back?
I can get
Specifically
back to Chris.
Martin?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Town staff, anything?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. And we'll move into seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Benderson Development LLC. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval of a 7,348 square foot medical office building located at 1300 Jefferson Road in an industrial zone district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance.
Second.
Mr. Eckert, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Seeker is carried. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
a motion to approve application 22-001.
thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
And who was that? My ears are working. Thank you, Mr. Barley. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Mr. List?
Yes.
Thank you. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Matt, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening and look forward to bringing another project in front of you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Matt.
Much appreciated. Okay, next on the agenda, application number 22002, Evangelista Residence for final site plan approval of a single-family home located at what will be known as 5057 East Henrietta Road in a rural residential zone district. And may I ask who's here representing the applicant this evening, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Ed Perone from, well, let's
Hi, Ed.
get,
Welcome.
welcome. Let's get this out of the way first. As effective this evening and the beginning of this week, we're now merged into MRB Group. So from this day forward, things are going to be going back to MRB. I will still be there. But we just made a pretty significant move over to MRB Group. So this evening, we are representing our clients, the Evangelistas that are here with me this evening. And we are, we'll be presenting it as Perone Engineering, but eventually it'll be transferred over to MRB Group. It is a one lot. It's an existing, pre-existing lot. We did need to get a variance because of the size of the lot. It was rezoned without consideration of this lot. So we went to the zoning board back in December. We received the variance on December 1st for this particular lot because it was substandard to the lot requirements in rural residential. We're looking for site plan approval this evening. We are proposing a single family home. The Evangelistas are here this evening for their permanent residence. It's a 3-bedroom home. It's positioned in such a way to allow for the septic system in the front, the septic system test and deep hole tests were all witnessed by the Monroe County Health Department as well as our staff. We've submitted plans to the Health Department. We've submitted plans to the Monroe County Water Authority. We've also submitted plans to the New York State Department of Transportation. We received comments back from the Health Department, and we also received comments back from the New York State Health or DOT. And we pretty much have approval for the water service from the Monroe County Water Authority. I did receive Chris's review letter, and I have just a couple of questions with some of the comments that were raised. The first is the issue relative to the possibility of providing some buffering along the north side, the south side, I should say, of the lot. We can certainly talk to Chris about it, but I think it's going to be a little tight. He just suggested if we could do that. I can tell you that the comment that he raised relative to site distance, we do have the minimum site distance is 360. We're just verifying that, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to be well in excess of 360 feet for a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone in this particular location. The only other two other comments that we have relative to this, I'm not sure because everything is going to be private, why a letter of credit would in fact be, and maybe Chris can share us with why a letter of credit would have to be set up for such a small project to this, and it's all private stuff. And the other one is relative to the turnout for the drive. I think, Chris, we did provide that as it related, Mr. Chairman, as it related to meeting the requirements, because he made mention that there possibly needs to be a variance for that. I hope that isn't the case. With that, I'll just close our presentation and be more than happy to answer any of the questions that you all might have.
Thank you, Ed, very much.
Thanks.
Chris, can I turn it over to you to respond to his questions there?
Yeah, as far as the letter of credit, we'll certainly take a look at it. If there's erosion control issues that we feel that are on the site, we may ask for something, but it's something that we'll review after
Okay.
we take a second look at it. You're right.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't ask them for small residential areas, but if there's something that we see that's alarming, then we may ask for it.
Okay,
As far as the turnaround and the variance, again, if there's a turnaround typically in the front yard because of our driveway code requirements, we do require a variance for that. Again, I can certainly put our planning board attorney on the spot, but there is a section in our code that says it's only a certain width. And if you exceed that width, then you need a variance for it.
okay. That would have been helpful if we had known that before.
Well, this is the first time that we've seen the site plans. We did not see it when you submitted for the variance for the lot itself.
Okay,
So this is our first time that first opportunity that we've had to look at the plans.
okay. And the other thing is relative, we looked at that about providing some more landscaping. As you well know, we got a swale in that particular area. It's going to be very, very difficult.
No, it is very tight. The only concern that we have is for the neighbor to the south. Since your house is so far back, or since that house is so far back, literally her backyard is where the house is. So if you could work with the neighbor or provide something, that would be nice. But again, I'm just suggesting it at this point.
Right, right. As you well know, we, at the zoning board meeting, we did not have a very good discourse with that individual.
Understood.
So I'm not too sure she would be very kind and want to cooperate, but we certainly, one might have to reach out to that person.
Yeah.
Other than that, the other comments are, there's no issues with the other comments.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'd like to hear a lot more about drainage. My site visits to this site based off of supervisor's comments to me before. I did a couple site visits. There's a swale running right through this property. It is the low point of everything, and that's where the water sits now.
Well, we're actually draining around the building, around the house with a swale and conveying it all the way down to the road, to East Henrietta Road.
Right, I see a swale at approximately 634.
Right,
And the building's at 634.4.
right.
So we've got, 4/10 of elevation between a swale going through the property and the building. My history here at the town and of our other projects that we have that are consistent with projects that have been approved before this board and before this administration are similar issues where we are constantly going out to drainage complaints and are being told, why would you allow a house here when it's constantly getting flooded? So I talked to Mr. Martin about this prior to the meeting and those other complaints that we get pretty consistently. It's not usually the homeowner that comes in, it gets sold, or the second or third owner comes in and says, I was unaware. Now, I know it's a buyer beware kind of concept, but to that same context, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the drainage and I don't know how much water flows through the swale right now, but every time I went out there, the property was pretty darn wet, if not underwater. The perk tests that I saw were full every time I went out. I don't know what drained out of the perk tests, and I'm not seeing is this a modified race fill or a conventional?
This is conventional.
This is a conventional system
Yes.
in a low point. So if it passed, it passed, but every time I went out, the perk test holes had water in them.
I think to answer your question, Mr. Eckert, what we could do is in fact raise the finished pad a little bit more to give more relief or assurance that we won't have any drainage issues
Well,
at the house.
and I appreciate that, but my problem is that we're raising this site. Where's the water going? I know we got a swale going around it, but I don't know if I have enough information from the property owners on the north and the south and if this is going to continue down the New York State drainage swale and if this is all now getting directed into the roadside ditch. And if
Well,
that
it
has a-
eventually did anyways.
Well, I think it sat in this property first.
Right.
I think it acted almost like a pond in this property.
Well, and we're now just directing it to its proper location along the roadway and in the drainage swale that it intended to go.
Right, but now instead of taking a detention or taking something out a little bit slower, we're putting it in to maybe more of a confined swale concept, which would be quicker. And more capacity. These are the issues that I'm seeing from history of drainage complaints that we have here at the town that Chris and I get to go out to and talk to these residents on a pretty regular basis. So I am going to be looking for, I guess, some understanding of how we can go ahead and approve this with the way it sits without knowing, or with what I believe is going to be a drainage issue in the future. If the
We're dealing
resident
with-
calls back and says, we have water coming into our basement. Why do I have water coming into my basement? And
Well, we're dealing with, first of all, we're dealing with a residence, one residence. We're not dealing with a variety, a lot of homes. It's just one home. And the impact from our perspective and also from the DOT, they didn't have that concern. That was not one of their comments relative to drainage. And we're draining it to their system.
Mhm.
Okay? So there has not been an issue. So I don't understand where you're going to have a problem with one single family residence that's going to affect anybody of substance downstream.
no,
If
I'm really
anything,
actually more affecting to this residence. I'm interested in the drainage, which could possibly be mitigated to the neighbors, but I'm wondering now how we're going to put a house in a drainage swale that's not going to flood.
That's what the design of the swale, and I think Mr. Martin did review that as it related to the swale. And we believe the swale is more than adequate to discharge the stormwater down to East Henrietta Road's ditch. I don't think that we don't see that as a major concern at all.
Okay. I know, but see, the other half dozen houses that we go out to with drainage concerns, that didn't come up in the drainage and the engineering of that concept either, but it's an issue that we're dealing with now. So in multiple locations.
If I may interject, I think I would feel more comfortable with raising the house a little bit.
Yeah.
Just take a look at it.
I agree with you, Chris. I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, and I guess I'd be curious at too is how much outside area does drain to this?
We can provide that for you.
So if we could just take a look at it and we'll just take a
Right.
second look and, see, it's,
Yeah, I think we can do that.
all right.
That shouldn't be a problem. I understand where you're coming from. And we don't want a drainage issue either for our client, obviously. So I think that we can handle that. Okay. I think if Chris and I can sit down and go over this a little bit, we can make this work for everybody's best benefit.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I mean, those are my comments, sir. I don't know, I would have to see a revised plan before I guess I would be, my comments would be relieved or understanding that this isn't going to be a complaint down the road, which we have pretty considerable ones of similar of.
Well, I would hope though that we could get this as a condition.
Yeah, and typically in the past, what we've done with these things, if there are issues like this that come up, obviously, we're not going to sign off on the plans until we're comfortable. And certainly, Mr. Eckert, you're more than welcome to review the plans prior to, me or any of the other staff members signing off on it.
I understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. My comment, which maybe Dan can help me to correct if I'm out of place, the comment that you and I receive on a regular basis is how could we allow this?
True.
Do we, the legal aspect is, do we have the ability to oversee that, or are we clear of diligence if we review the plans in that nature? And if that's the case, then that's fine. Otherwise, I hear that all the time, just like you, right? And it's not going to be maybe this resident, it'll be one down the road or something else when we'll get that complaint and something's settled a little bit or something's moved or a tree goes in and the swale gets blocked, and you know how that comes into play. And I understand that's maintenance, not part of this design, but that's what we get. And that's what we get a lot of complaints to, and we can't go in and fix them, and yet people believe we own them. So any comments, correction for me, Mr. Mistrella?
Well, the only comment I'd have is that as an individual board member, if you're not satisfied that the drainage issues are adequately dealt with in the plan that you're being asked to approve, that you don't have to vote to approve it.
Yeah.
I mean, drainage is certainly a legitimate issue in a site plan approval. And if you want more information before you vote to approve it, you can ask. It really depends on what your fellow board members want to do, if they want to move it to a conclusion this evening or ask for more information.
Okay. Well, I've seen, I understand the communication back and forth with what Chris can oversee, and what I'm seeing on the set of plans, those are my concerns. So the end of my comments to that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr.
And thank you, Mr. Mastrella. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Craig, kudos to you for pointing that out because that is such a slight variance. And I don't know if the homeowners currently live in Henrietta, but it is a real issue in town with the clay soil we have. So kudos to you for pointing that out and really reiterating the fact that this is a real issue when it's flooding. I can't even imagine what my backyard's gonna look like when it's 56 degrees this Thursday with all this melted snow. But it is a real issue, and I am going to hope that we talk further about possibility of conditional, and I will rely heavily on our engineering staff to very carefully and adequately address the drainage swale, the raising of the home, and how we see the next pass come through. I think it's in the best interest of the homeowners, and I think ultimately they'll be much happier that we did our due diligence to thoroughly and carefully review all the measurements, all the drainage. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's drainage seems like an interesting thing. And Mr. Martin, would this be one of the reasons why we would have a letter of credit for residents?
It's possible, it's with any application, we look for certain things, like, for example, sanitary sewer, of course, this doesn't have any. Erosion control, possibly, would there need to be a stormwater pond? Probably not. So, like I said, it's something that we always put in our comments, just in case something comes up, that we have that leeway to do that. So to answer your question, it could be, if there's an issue. I would be more concerned, especially if we're gonna get some snow melt on the next couple of days. Maybe that's an opportunity to go out there and take a look and see if there are issues. Is that swale or the drainage ditch along East Henrietta Road functioning properly? So that might be a good opportunity to go out and take a look at to see if there are indeed issues.
Yeah, with our temperatures going up, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, the timing of this. And the second thing, which we've already touched on, is the buffering between this and the property to the south. And it sounds to me like you had some animosity between the current neighbor there.
We certainly did not.
Okay.
We were kind of taken aback at the zoning board meeting because of it's only one residence. And the issue here that, and the town openly admitted that they kind of blew it. They didn't realize that this lot did exist and it wasn't the size that was in this new zoning that they put on this property. So we were kind of blown away that the person was that, how should I say, boisterous against this for the variance of the size of the lot. We ultimately did get that, and the zoning board recognized that because the Evangelistas own the land. It's not that they're speculating. They actually own the land and they want to be good neighbors and live in this town. And it was not a positive meeting, unfortunately.
Well, and our job is to make sure we review these things, but also if somebody owns land, we want you to be able to do with it what you want to do with the
Right.
land. So we understand that. That being said, it would be a good faith thing, especially now, once again, if this gets approved,
Right.
that neighbor's stuck. So it would be a very good,
Right.
positive measure,
Right.
maybe after approval, if it gets approved,
Right.
to go and say, listen, it's a little hard to do stuff, but if you would like, we could help you put some stuff on your land if that's easier. But I
That's-
would really like you to research this. I can't tell you what to do.
Right.
But I can make some,
Right.
last thing you want is to go in with bad blood with a brand new neighbor.
No, you do not.
So I think that's a really good opportunity to turn it into a couple good neighbors.
Right.
So please look into that if you would. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Yeah, Mrs. Brill.
May I ask, is it the residents to the south?
Yes,
So their home, which is kind of cut off, which is why I asked,
yes.
is right before the garage,
Yes.
if you will. So it's,
Yeah.
okay, thank you for clarifying. Appreciate it. I'm sorry?
This is Mrs. and
Both
Evangelista.
of them were?
Yeah, I was not at that meeting. One of my associates was at the meeting. So you're right, Angela. Okay, it was both. All right.
Good luck.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one to the north, it seems like there is some good natural buffering there. So
There
I'm not-
is.
I'm not as worried about that,
Right.
but it's very sparse. I'm looking at the satellite and it's very sparse on that south.
Right.
So it would be a good thing to, once again,
Right.
try to reach out and see what happens.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Hi, Ed. You mentioned it's 3 bedrooms. What kind of square footage for the home that you're gonna build?
It's about 2,000, a little over 2,000 square feet,
2 levels?
about 2,000 square feet, yes.
The absorption trench that you're putting in,
1,600 feet, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're-
I have a question about the absorption trench that you're putting in. Have you ever used this before with any success?
septic systems? Oh, yeah. Thousands.
The trench that you're putting in.
Oh, the swale?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's common. That's a common practice of moving storm drainage around lots. It's very common. Yes. There's no issue with that. In fact, Chris knew that we were going to do that, and he wants some more definition on the swale. He wants some more elevations placed on the swale to better define what the grade is on the swale, which we do have a grade on that swale. So yes, that's a normal course of design for lot swales.
Yeah, 'cause my concern would also be with drainage. If it's gonna be something that hinders the neighborhood or any other neighbors, not to take away from what they're gonna build.
Right.
I think it'll be fine, but we do have to be careful of that also. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barley.
Yeah, but yeah,
It's the lowest lot, unfortunately.
I understand.
Chair will recognize Mr. List.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Other than, dealing with the drainage issue that has already been addressed, that's a pretty big concern. You said this is it's a conventional septic system?
Yes. This is not a raised bed system.
Not a raised bed. So I remember years ago, I owned a home in West Brighton, and upon selling it, the system failed.
Right.
And I was faced with either investing a large amount of money in a raised bed or just doing lines. I wound up just doing my new leach lines.
Right.
But I would think, as a potential, as an owner following their ownership, let's say, I'd like to see, I don't know, I just think that that area I'd like to see the system work. I mean, I'm not, totally familiar with septic systems. All I know is that in a high water area like Henrietta is, we need something, we want to make sure that works correctly. That's all.
We, and so does the Monroe County Health Department.
Yes. And do they still, if you issue, because I had to sign a waiver at the time that said I wouldn't want the sand fill system. So I signed a waiver with the Monroe County Health Department stating that if it failed, I would have to do that, put the raised system in. Is that still in effect? Do they still do something like that?
Not to my knowledge.
No?
Not to my knowledge.
All right.
We do have to show an expansion,
Mhm.
which we are showing on the site plan. The expansion in the event that the septic system needs to be reinforced, or if there's some of the lines fail.
Sure.
The point of the matter is, and you all know, because you, Mr. List, you experienced it with a septic system. We always inform our clients, you can't think of this as a public sanitary sewer. You have to be very mindful. You need to be constantly maintaining it. You should be pumping out the tank no less than every 2 years. You want to make sure what type of effluent is going into the system. You want to reduce the amount of scum. Certainly, you try to avoid having garbage disposals. If you do have a garbage disposal, you want to make the system even bigger. I mean, it's a system that, and I hate to say this in front of you guys, but this will, a lot of times, we design them that over time, they will fail. Some will last 50, 60 years. Some will only last 20 years. It's depending on the person and how they use their water.
How big is the tank for this home?
I think it's 1,200.
1,200. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Sorry, Mr. Perone, would you be kind enough to identify exactly where this is for me? I'm looking on Google Earth, and based on the plans I have, I'm not finding a house to the north, so I'm not sure which ones of these homes are the existing. Do you mind doing that for me? Thank you so much. Yeah. So it found the address.
I believe the
Across from those apartments.
My picture looks entirely different.
Closer.
Any additional questions, Mrs. Brill?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay, you're welcome. So, Mr. Martin, it doesn't look like you had any major concerns with the drainage on this site.
I mean, certainly there's a concern, but it is the lowest lot, so I think it's something that can be engineered to work. I feel comfortable that the raise a little bit, that would certainly help. But I think it would be good to go out there, take a look at the site, we do have some significant snow now or rain. You know, and it's like anything else, contours seem to work, I mean, it's, you know, as long as the grade swale is installed properly and should work, on paper. A lot of it does come to the contractor to make sure that he installs everything correctly.
Well, Mr. Evangelista is a mason contractor, and I'm sure he's going to have a big part in the construction of this particular residence. And he'll be the first to say, I want to make sure it's designed and built this properly so that I can not have any drainage issues. That is not the goal here. Right, exactly. Exactly.
And as you said, you would sign off on them if there was concern that. Okay. Mr. Mastrella, anything?
I was contacted last week by adjacent neighbors, Lynn McLean, and she actually is the one who called my office and forwarded me a letter that she was sending, I thought sending to the planning board, expressing some concerns. And it doesn't appear that anybody ever got that.
The only thing we've got is for 345.
Heather, are you on?
No, she's
not on?
I'm running the.
Oh, you're running it. Can you tell if they're zoomed into this meeting?
No, there isn't anybody else. Oop, a new number has shown up since on the attendees list.
All right. Well, I don't know if you want me to read this or not. Apparently they didn't forward it, so.
Well, I can maybe preface. So let me just go back to the reason I was out there was a complaint based, I think, from the zoning board that somebody reached out to the supervisors. So the supervisor sent me out to the site on a couple different occasions just to take a look and answer a complaint that he had, which I believe resulted only from the zoning board. I don't believe it was anything else.
What type of complaint?
A drainage, water sitting, what was doing.
On this site or,
Yep.
or a neighbor's home being
No,
affected?
on this
On
site.
this site, okay.
Yeah, based off of what I believe was the zoning board. I have to go back and check my notes. It's been a month or so. When were you at the zoning board?
December 1st.
So yeah, two months ago. Or so that was my reason for attending the site.
This letter doesn't address drainage issues. It addresses the way the property is laid out, where the driveway is, et cetera.
Driveway's existing.
Yes, it is.
It's an existing curb cut.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed, I looked on Google, I noticed it's an existing curb cut. So unless you want me to, I'm just gonna leave it as is.
Well, Heather's very good about making sure we have everything that comes in, and if,
Yeah, I think if she would have got it, she would have shared.
yeah, so if it's not officially part of that record, I don't know that I want to
Fair
look at it, but
enough.
thank you
I
very
just
much. I
thought I'd
appreciate
Bring it to your attention.
yeah.
That's all. Regarding the driveway,
Mhm.
you should, if there's going to be an approval, it should be conditioned upon the driveway conforming to the code. You can look at Article 240 of the code. And actually a turnaround, there's a lot of regulations as to the dimensions and the like, but the turnaround is not included in driveway width calculations. It is significantly regulated, and I'm sure that you can design it in accordance with this, and maybe it already is designed in accordance with it. But to answer Mr. Martin's earlier concern, at least width-wise, the turnaround doesn't factor into, it doesn't make the driveway that width at the turnaround, so to speak, doesn't factor into it.
So whatever, Mr. Mistrella, whatever is in section 240 there relative to driveways?
Yeah, it's pretty specific about turnarounds, extensions, et cetera.
Okay.
And you can just take a look at that.
This is for private drives, correct?
Yeah, driveways.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And it's designed to regulate new construction, expansion, et cetera. There's a grandfather clause in there for stuff that already exists and isn't being altered, so.
Okay.
But no reason to believe that the driveway you've designed is not within code, but since it came up, there should be a condition.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mistrella. Any other comments from the board? Town staff? Okay, thank you. I will move into seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Rocco Evangelista. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval for a single-family home located at what will be known as 5057 East Henrietta Road in a rural residential zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Mr. Barley?
Mr.
Mr.
Lewis.
Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, you two sound too much alike tonight. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
How many is that, two? All opposed, say nay.
Nay. Mr.
One.
Barley, Mr. Eckert,
Two. Two nays, three nays.
Two.
And Mr. Borkowski, you were a yay? Yes, okay. And Mrs. Brill, you were a,
Yes,
I'm sorry?
I was a yes.
A yes, thank you.
Yay, a yay.
Okay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank God we don't have a tie. And we have seeker. So the chair will entertain a motion on this application.
Before you do
Yes.
entertain the motion, I just got a message from my office answering service wherein Ms. McLean is apparently monitoring this meeting online, but can't talk. She says she left a message saying that she did send the letter via email about a week ago.
I have no questions or chats via the online. I have a phone number listed in as an attendee with no name.
That must be her. Correct.
No, it's not. I'm just saying that she obviously she's listening and she heard what I had to say about not getting the letter not being delivered. That's all. So, you know.
If we can get a copy of it, we would look at it, if there's any engineering items or things of that nature, then we can certainly work with the applicant on that.
Okay, well, I have it right here.
Before the record, before we vote, then let's go ahead and have Mr. Mistrella, or I can read it, Dan, whichever you'd like to do. It was addressed to you, so if you want to read it, that's fine.
Okay, I'll read it. And so this is the communication that we had. For the record, she called my office. She knows me. I don't specifically know her. She knows me because she worked in the Rochester City Court previously, where I have appeared more times than I'd like to mention.
Repeat her name.
Yes, her name is Lynn McLean. So she asked me if I would review a letter she intended to send to the planning board with this. She said, here is the draft email I've written to the planning board. I appreciate any input you might have. When you do receive the agenda for the meeting and the site location map, our house is the one represented in the lower left corner of the map, just south of the proposed garage and driveway. Our bedroom is at the front northeast corner and our 2-bedroom windows are situated in that very corner. I can forward a photo if that might help. I never asked for or received the photo. Then her letter to the board was, the purpose of this letter is to express to the board the many concerns we have regarding the proposed residence at 5057 East Henrietta Road. We live at 5069 East Henrietta Road. Lot number 34 runs adjacent to and behind our property. Lot 34 is just under 1 acre in size and is an excessively wet parcel. Therefore, Ms. Evangelista had to apply for a variance to allow for a septic leach field to cover the entire front yard of her proposed dwelling. Given the limitations of the leach field and the wet conditions at the rear of the parcel, the proposed building will sit far back from the road and completely in view of our house and yard. We will lose all privacy. I would ask that the building be situated in line with all of the houses to the south of the proposed house, with the septic leach field in the rear of the house, as is the case with our houses. In addition, the proposed driveway is right on the property line and adjacent to our bedroom. The nuisance of the noise from cars driving in and out and the car headlamps disturbing our sleep is also of great concern to us. We would ask that at the very least, the layout of the proposed building be redesigned with the driveway and garage on the north side of the lot and adjacent to the driveway for the properties at 5041 East Henrietta Road, where it would be less of a nuisance. While it is difficult to tell from the location map that was included with the planning board meeting agenda, the proposed house is not at all in keeping with the adjacent properties. Ms. Evangelista states that her house is only 1,600 square feet. The footprint would suggest that it is twice that size. Her house will negatively impact the value of all adjacent properties. While we do realize that building designs evolve over the years and wouldn't expect the new house to look exactly like the 1950s ranches in the subdivision, we would like to see a house that is more in keeping with the other houses in the area. We thank you for taking the time to consider this matter. We ask that you reflect on the concerns we have presented as neighbors and taxpayers of Henrietta and trust that you will acknowledge and address these concerns. Regards, Lynn McLean and Frank J. Hampton. And my response to Ms. McLean was the letter is well written and informative. For your information, though, the planning board does not have authority over the style of the house. There is no harm in leaving those comments in your letter, though. And that was it. So
Okay,
that's,
thank you, Dan.
you're welcome.
So Ed, are there any comments at all relative to that letter? Anything that could be done with the driveway, situating the house?
As far as the situation of the house is concerned, we looked at that possibility. But as you know, the land, it goes from the west to the east, and it's higher. And the house would be more in a hole, and then we would have to either put substantial amount of fill in the lot and then have to redo the percolation test. And we would have to probably renegotiate where the curb cut is going to be. So it affords ourselves a little bit different opportunities and far more expense to do that. We were working with the lay of the land the way it is. And we can assure you that the groundwater levels were low. They were not as high as you think that they are when we did the deep hole test. So I don't think that I would rather work with Chris's suggestion to Mrs. McLean's concerns relative to the car lights and what have you, of trying to find a way where we can screen her property, because I think she's the closest one. I think she's the one on the south side. So I think if we can provide some more screening for her, that would allay some of her concerns. As far as the design of the home is concerned, I think that the home will be meeting with today's trend. It's certainly not going to be, as she indicated, it's not going to be a 1950s type ranch. It's just not going to be.
Well, I think she acknowledged that.
Yeah, she did.
She
did. So, I mean, it's going to be an attractive home. It's not going to be unattractive. And the other concerns relative to, I guess that's just about it. She didn't really talk about drainage. She talked more about the position of where the home should be. Okay. And we chose this because working with the lay of the land would be the best approach. Okay. That's why we did what we did. And we're trying to make it as affordable for the Evangelistas to build this particular home, instead of trying to bring in mass amount of earth so that the home can be raised so that we don't need to start pumping. You do not want to pump septic systems if you do not have to. That is not a good plan when we still can design it going in a gravity type system. I think Mr. List would be more than willing to agree with that one. I'd never, ever want to pump if I could. There are times where we have to do it. There's no question about it. But in this particular case, I would not. It gets to be a point where it's not even affordable to build the home at this point in time then.
Is Ms. McLean, is she the same neighbor we referenced earlier at the zoning? Was it?
I think both
Yes.
of them were there.
Yep. Okay. Thank
Both
you.
of them were there. Yeah.
So Ed, is that the reason why the leach field's in the front of the house?
Yes,
In
that
the
is
front
a-
of the
Yes.
property? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I think, as you mentioned before, as Mr. Borkowski suggested, the outreach to the neighbor and maybe trying to find some solutions to assist them with their concerns would be appropriate here.
I agree.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Well, the chair will entertain a motion at this point on application number 22002. Okay, well, the chair will make a motion then to approve a conditional, motion. Let me see, how do I want to word this? Thank you. Mrs. Bro, did you get that? And that'll be my motion.
I left a blank space to find out what the 240 is, and now I can't find where I need to insert it. So thank you. Here it is. Here it is. Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski.
You,
Okay, do I have a sufficient second?
I'll second.
Mr. Borkowski, thank you. Discussion? All approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that 3,
That was 4.
4? Thank you. All opposed, say nay.
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 2. Okay, the opinion of the chair of the ayes have it. The motion carries. So gentlemen, we're all set.
Thank you.
Condition on, we stipulated there, and then hopefully the good faith effort to speak with the neighbor and hopefully alleviate some of their concerns with the project. Thank you.
Good luck, Ed.
Thank you. Good night. Next item on the agenda this evening is application number 22003, Verizon Wireless Riverview Micro Project. This would be for a final site plan approval of a Microcell wireless telecommunications facility on a replacement RG&E pole located within the right-of-way adjacent to 39 Landing Street in an R115 zoned district. And I believe we've got Rebecca Bergdorf, Jackie Bartoletta, and Michael Crosby with us this evening.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
If I could address the board, my name is Robert Bergdorf. I'm an attorney with the law firm Nixon Peabody, and here tonight on behalf of Verizon Wireless. Also with me tonight, for the record, is Jackie Bartolotta, site acquisition consultant for Verizon Wireless, and Mike Crosby, who's the RF engineer for Verizon Wireless. Verizon Wireless is a public utility licensed and regulated by the Federal Communications Commission and responsible for providing wireless services to various geographic parts of the United States, but including the area in and around the town of Henrietta. It currently has inadequate service in what we call the Riverview cell. And the only way to resolve that is to place another facility in a technologically appropriate spot in order to resolve the coverage deficiencies. What is being proposed is a microcell, which is simply a small antenna to be placed on a telephone pole, a replacement telephone pole or utility pole at 39 Landing Street. The current pole is 33.5 feet tall. The new pole would be 38.5, so virtually the same, within 5 feet. And the minor equipment on the pole will be a 24-inch antenna, and the cabling, all is shown in the photo simulations. There are coverage and capacity issues. That's why we need this. That's all set forth in Exhibit E, and I won't go into those unless the board has questions. Co-location on poles is aesthetically, the gold standard if we can get it, and sometimes we can. In this case, it's an appropriate application for that. The photo simulations in Exhibit L, hopefully everybody on the board has gotten a copy of our submission package and can see in Exhibit L what it looks like. And it's pretty minor, the before and after pictures. Basically replacing a pole and putting some equipment on that pole. We meet the town standards as set forth in Exhibit C and Exhibit D. And again, I won't belabor those unless the board has questions. I note that we are in receipt of the January 31st memo from town engineer and have no concerns or problems with any of the comments or requirements in that letter. I note that this requires site plan approval from this board. And so we are seeking a neg deck for purposes of seeker and then site plan approval for this facility. And we'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Robert. Chair will recognize Mr. List. We'll start with you this time, sir.
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. List. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
So are we replacing the pole or we just putting new equipment?
You're replacing the pole. There's currently a 33.5 foot tall pole. Will be replaced with one that looks essentially the same, but it'll be 38.5 feet. So a 5 foot difference, again, would not be noticeable to the casual observer. And if you look on Exhibit L to our application, there's a before and after photograph and rendering, and it shows what this looks like. And it's a pretty minor installation.
We're trying to find L. Give us a second.
Thank you very much.
I got L. Yeah.
What page is that out of the 111 page application packet?
Well, it would be toward the very end. Probably with, probably past page 100 roughly.
Okay. Thank you.
And you'll see, basically, you'll see photographs showing up towards the end.
So this frequency will be enough for the coverage that Verizon needs for its customers?
Yes, Mike, do you want to address what the pole will actually do for this?
Microcell.
Sure. Yeah, this is Mike Crosby, Verizon Wireless RF engineer. Just a little bit more meat on the bones to add to what Bob was discussing. The existing area is served by the Bailey Road site. That site has some what we call low band or longer wavelength frequency that serves the area currently, but it's actually overloaded. And because it's overloaded and the mid-band frequencies, the AWS and PCS frequencies, are not able to provide the capacity offload to the area, what this does is it actually helps us to densify the network with a small cell and actually allows us to have those mid-band frequencies present. The problem is these, the higher capacity capability that we have on these mid-band frequencies, the AWS and PCS, they don't travel as far. And so what happens is the lower frequencies that travel a longer distance, they get overloaded. And unfortunately, that wider bandwidth that we have available in the AWS and PCS arena are not able to serve that far away from the serving site. And so what this does is it helps us to target a relatively dense residential area with the small cell that provides just the AWS, PCS mid-band type frequencies from a local location. So it doesn't have to, the RF doesn't have to travel as far. So that's essentially what's taking place. So it's helping us to fill in coverage that is lacking in the mid-band. And what that does is it provides the capacity necessary to offload the existing low band service in the area.
And another way to think of this is in the older days, and it's back some time ago, the only way to solve these kinds of issues was to build new macro towers. So you'd have more towers. And the technology is now such that we can get this down to the utility pole level for fill-in sites. And it allows us to reduce the number of towers we need to introduce into a community.
All right, thanks for that explanation, Mike. Appreciate it. Answering my question. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. The chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also do not have any questions.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything from town staff, engineering?
Well said, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments from the applicant at all?
No, not unless the board has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move into seeker. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration as a type 2 action as per section 617.5C7. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Bell Atlantic Mobile Systems, LLC. It is a type 2 action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval of a microcell wireless telecommunications facility on a replacement RG&E pole located within the right-of-way adjacent to 39 Landing Street in an R115 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Mr. Eckert, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have a seeker. The chair will entertain a motion on the application?
Mr. Chairman, I'll put forth a motion to pass the Microcell application. Is it PB 332?
Final site plan. Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Who was it? Thank you, Mr. Barley.
And I believe it's 22003.
Thank you.
Correct.
Good plan.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The application is approved. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Good
You're
night.
Okay, next on the agenda this evening is application number 22004. West Her Car Dealership for final site plan approval for a construction of a 25,000 square foot car dealership with a showroom, doll-up space, offices, and associated parking located at 4600 West Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zone district. And it looks like we've got Josh Beck and Jim Mocha. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
Thank you. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Hello, talking again, second time today. Joshua Saxton, civil engineer, working on this project. Just gonna share my screen real quick. Can everyone see the screen currently?
Yes.
Okay, so as stated, this parcel is located at 4600 West Henrietta Road in a B1 commercial district. It's about 4.8 acres. Existing site conditions are kind of shown in this Google aerial here, with a abandoned hotel building, as well as some adjacent parking and roadways that was serving the old hotel. Surrounding site to the south is the Bob Johnson car dealership. To the west is the Country Max, kind of to the northwest, and an abandoned lot directly to the west. And then kind of a lack of development to the north and the east, with basically some agricultural use in that area. So I will go to the plans next. So before we submitted this to the planning board, we got a special use permit granted for the construction of a car dealership. There were a couple of conditions for that approval. One being establishing a dedicated drop-off area for loading and unloading vehicles, as well as the construction of the actual dealership within 2 years of the approval. I'll get into that a little more as I get into my presentation, but that special use permit was granted with those conditions. So here's the site as it is currently designed. Going into the site plan. As you can see, there's a lot of parking since this will be a car dealership. We had about 338 spots proposed at the time of the application, spread out, pretty much through the entire site. The entire site will be disturbed, kind of going property line to property line. But it is a redevelopment project, so we will be demolishing the existing buildings as well as removing the existing pavement that was, served for the parking areas and the roadways for the old motel for part of this project. We will be utilizing the existing curb cut entrance that was used for the hotel. There wasn't any proposed widening as of yet for this entrance. Just didn't want to move it, or it's kind of aligned perfectly with the existing curb cut across the road. So there was no current changes to that site. And the building is located here with kind of in the center of the parcel, with sidewalks surrounding the building to provide access to the man doors, as well as ADA parking throughout in the front of the building to provide access to the building. We don't currently have a footprint or elevations of the final building. It's kind of in development now. And we will be planning on returning to the board once the final building is laid out with materials and finishings to get approval on the actual building. So this will be more for the site and providing a parking area as well as sufficient infrastructure, water, sanitary, stormwater improvements to make way for this proposed auto dealership. This is the demolition plan, kind of just showing, the existing site conditions. As I stated before, this kind of hatched area is the existing asphalt or impervious area. And this kind of cross-hatched buildings are the existing buildings on site. So as stated, we're planning on removing everything on the site and starting new with the car dealership. Moving along, utilities. A good part of working on a site like this that's a redevelopment project is that there's connections to existing utilities more than likely, since it was a pre-developed lot, and that is the case with this project. Sanitary lines will be leaving the building, going across the site, going into the New York State DOT right-of-way and connecting to the existing stormwater manhole that's located in the southwest portion of the site. Water kind of follow the same alignment, but it will be connecting perpendicularly to the existing water main along West Henrietta Road. Stormwater will have 2 points of analysis for the site. Most of it will be collected via catch basins throughout the site, and it will be transferred to either a existing or a proposed chamber system that will be used to retain the stormwater and release it at a rate that's less than pre-existing conditions, or it will also go to a bioretention area, which will be used to treat the stormwater. And the combo of these two are mainly to meet town as well as New York State DEC stormwater requirements on site. For grading, if you've ever driven, up this hill, it's a pretty steep hill. So we're kind of tied into some of that existing topography on site. So a lot of this is going downhill towards the intersection of Lehigh and West Henrietta Road. That's generally how the site will drain. It'll either drain to low spots where these catch basins are located. And there's a small portion on the eastern side that just drains off-site into the agricultural field. But the site was analyzed and a SWIP was prepared that showed that the pre and post conditions of runoff, of stormwater runoff, are less under the proposed conditions as opposed to the preconditions. And that was analyzing this eastern portion of the site, which is the agricultural portion, as well as this south western portion of the site, which is where a majority of the drainage of this development ends up. The underground stormwater chamber system does discharge to this point, as well as the bioretention area. I'll go up to the existing conditions. There's an existing, it might be hard to see, an existing gutter system that actually collected the stormwater from the existing development, discharged it to this gutter, which eventually goes to the southwestern portion of the site. It's actually off-site. And this is in the New York State DOT right away. And that eventually goes to a culvert pipe that goes under the road. So we're maintaining that drainage point. So we're not, creating a new point discharge at a different, area of the site. And we also proved that the pre and post conditions of the stormwater runoff is less under proposed conditions. Next, going into landscaping and lighting. We have dark sky compliant lights throughout the entire parcel to provide adequate lighting and safety for anyone that may be on site, as well as a plethora of trees surrounding the boundary of the site, as well as in some of the grass islands of the site. We did meet with the Conservation Board a couple of weeks ago. They did have a couple of comments regarding location, mainly these trees along the eastern side, moving them more up the hill, since this is going to be a pretty steep hill, that they wanted moved up more towards the curb to avoid the canopies of the trees, somewhat impacting the roadway, as well as just some site new utility conflicts with some of the proposed vegetation on site. So that was essentially the plans that were submitted to the board. Since they have been submitted, We have sent the plans out to county agencies. That includes the Monroe County Water Authority, Monroe County Health Department, and Monroe County Pure Waters. We have received their comments and addressed them. So they are pretty much all set with the plans how they stand currently. There is one agency we are still waiting on, and that's the New York State DOT. That is because we are conducting some work in the New York State DOT right of way. We will need permit applications for those. At this time, we still haven't received responses yet from the New York State DOT, but we will be addressing any comments that they have as well to make the plans approvable to their standards. We also did receive comments from town staff. I did provide a letter to Heather. I didn't know if the board was able to get that letter, if they have it. I have it on my computer if there's any specific comments that the board wanted to go over. There was a couple that I did want to go over, one being the dedicated drop-off. Kind of a initial proposal of what that may look like for the site. Since that was, a condition of the special use permit and as well as a comment from town staff. So our initial thought to, alleviate this concern of the town is to provide signage, throughout the site, directing drop-off and unloading and loading traffic into a designated spot. And that's kind of located in the upper corner, back corner of the site. The size may change and location, but we were planning on doing it in the back of the building to avoid having it, be visible from the road. So essentially they would, follow the signage through, drop off any vehicles needed, and then circle back out and exit the site. And I know that was a concern that the town staff had, as well as just wanted to address that condition of the special use permit. So, at this time, I don't know if you have the comment letter. I do have it on my person. So if there's any specific comments that the board may have, or maybe additional comments that weren't presented in the letter, I am here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Josh. What was that letter? Was that written response to Mr. Martin's comment?
Yeah, it was. Let me see if I can pull it up.
We do have that. I didn't remember. But
okay. Yeah, it was for all towns. It was for all town staff. There wasn't many other comments. I know that the building and building inspection had a couple of comments, and then the fire marshal didn't have any comments for the site. So they were mainly Chris Martin's comments regarding, the site layout and those. So.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I'm sad to see those classic buildings going away. They're such a showcase for the town up there, but I guess we got to move ahead, right? So
yeah.
No, this is going to be a nice project, I think. I like the drop off section in the back there. And again, we've had some other issues with neighbors there, and that's going to be a very good thing. So at this point, I will call on Mr. List and recognize you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Along as the concert, I read the minutes from the Conservation Board and your comments to Chris Martin's checklist, and I'm happy with that, with the way it is. Be happy to see that old hotel go. I wonder, that when you say the drop-off area will be in the rear corner, I just have a hard time trying to imagine a tractor, a car loader getting around that area. Let's say he shows up late at night. It looks like a tight spot there, 24 feet. Do you think that's enough room to make the turn?
Yeah, like I said, this is kind of a first go at it. Kind of was mainly presenting it for this board to kind of discuss, and as it progresses, like I said, the size may increase, given some additional comments. But it was mainly kind of putting in that back area to provide space, away from the road, so that it's kind of hidden in the back. But there may be some site adjustments if it is found that this area isn't large enough. There may be some site redesign to make that acceptable.
Will this be a multi-brand dealership or a single brand? You know, at this time?
Yeah, hi, this is this is Jim Malka. I'm with West I'm the Director of Facilities. We do not have a specific brand in mind at this point in time. We are working with a few different ones to determine the application here. So no specific brand at this point in time, but based on some of the traffic flow that we have at our other locations, we'd like to kind of move forward with some of the site development here that we could start to use this for storage and loading and unloading of vehicles in that time period. That's why we asked for the 2-year time period with the special use permit.
In the comments, you say that you're not going to extend the sidewalk. You determined that wasn't necessary.
Like I said, I mean, that's a discussion we can have, here, but I just from my perspective, and I kind of posted it in the comments where, the next closest tie-in point on this side of the road is at the Calkins and West Henrietta intersection. That's over almost 3,000 feet. So, extending the sidewalk along, the property, not only is it is outside of our actual property limits. Kind of figured out as we're going through that it's kind of an odd shaped parcel here. Usually it's square, but there was a cutout that was dedicated to the New York State DOT in this pot, and that also incorporates the sidewalk. So, if we were to extend it, it would have to be a whole New York State DOT project and process. And also, getting up this hill, like I said, if you've ever driven down, it's a pretty steep hill down. So, extending the sidewalk, along at least our property frontage, at this time, I don't see a need for it. But I don't know if the board had any concerns regarding that.
That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I had a couple of things. I noticed there's a minimum, there's a very minute, I guess, area of a flood hazard. How are you addressing that?
On the site?
Is that on the site? I'm just looking at the map.
Flood hazard.
Site data?
On site data. Let me see if I can pull it up. See if there's a drainage map I can pull up.
Yeah, I think you're fairly high there. I can't imagine there's a floodplain over there.
And on the side of it's on the upper part of the hill. Pull it up. There's something here. It may be an incorrect portion of the site data. Oh, this is the FIRMA map from FEMA, and the entire site's
Correct.
in a minimal flood hazard. Huh.
Could be a 500 year, but
Okay.
again, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. If it's minimum, it could be a 500 year flood. But boy, that land is so high up into there.
Yeah.
I'd certainly be surprised if there was anything on the site.
Yeah, we can take a look into that, but yeah, like Chris said, it's kind of going up the hill. So if this area is flooding,
Right.
everything downhill of that would be flooding, and I think we'd have bigger problems at that point. But yeah, we can look into seeing if that impacts anything on the site, or if there's a specific area that maybe this map was looking at.
You've got a 610 finish floor. It's a good question, Robert. I'm
Yeah, I
not sure
just
where
wondered.
it's a 610 finish floor elevation.
Mhm.
I think the highest that I'm aware of in Henrietta.
Okay.
Well, Methodist Hill is the highest.
Yeah,
Monroe County, isn't it?
that's a good question.
I think the Woodcliff Hill might be the tallest. That's what I thought. Yep.
But you're, so.
The other thing, if you could check into it, that'd be great.
Yep.
I'm a map specialist, but I see it there, so I just figured I'd ask the question.
Mhm.
I noticed there were a lot of indications of green infrastructure. Will this project be installing any charging stations?
I don't believe we have any proposed at this time. I don't know if Jim has any
Yeah.
Any input on that?
So at this point in time, we would not be installing any. If, depending on which brand ultimately is selected for this, we would meet whatever their requirements are for charging, which, you know, the current trend is to push towards that. So I'm certain that there will be at some point in time. It just, the preliminary development would not include any chargers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no other questions.
You're welcome, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
To stick with the sidewalk, there's a couple things. One, I think anytime we have an opportunity to put a sidewalk in, we should do it, especially on a busy road like that. Mr. Martin, is that something that we can ask them to at least start it on their property and get some kind of coffer money?
Sure. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, typically, per our active transportation plan, we're always looking to expand sidewalks. You know, sometimes they lead to nowhere, but at some point it does give us the momentum to maybe continue it at some point in the future. And I know we were looking at West Henrietta Road at some point. So I think it's a good idea. I mean, the sidewalk is already there. All we're looking to is expand it further north.
Yeah, I would really like you to extend it further north. And if you actually look at the satellite imagery, you've got a truncated one on the west side too. So even if you matched them up, yeah, there you go. So with that west side, that sidewalk goes down another, I don't know, a couple hundred yards.
Yeah,
I should
over to
say.
here.
Yeah, right there. So I understand that there's a residence there or whatever that is, but if we could at least match it up to that, that would be a good start. And then we talk about maybe putting some money in the coffers. So when we get the DOT on board, then we can do more stuff down the road. But anyway, I'm pretty adamant about trying to put in sidewalks when we can. So second thing is I'm just curious. Another thing for Mr. Martin, it seems like there's a lot of speculation as to what we're doing. Why is this a final rather than preliminary?
Well, and this is a little bit unusual, Mr. Bukowski, certainly by any means. I think the reason, and sometimes we do this with plazas, and let me give you an example. When I'm trying to remember, the Menardi Plaza came in. Again, they knew roughly where the buildings were going, but they weren't 100% sure what they were going to look like. And I'm talking more the out parcels. And this is the kind of way I look at it as well. It's certainly, they don't know what the building is going to be at this point, but we knew we had to come to the planning board anyway to discuss the parking lot. So why not at least show a rough footprint of the building with the understanding that as a condition of this approval, they're going to have to come back if the building shape changes, or, you know, certainly to provide any type of building materials, elevations and things of that nature.
Yeah,
So
and-
it is a little unusual, I will grant you that, but I wanted the planning board to kind of see an overall of what it could be.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But once again, I think that's the definition of preliminary. So for instance, the big thing for many of us sitting here is the drop-off location. I know you've addressed it, but it's not set in stone anywhere. And I don't like that. That to me is a big outlier, which is exactly what got us into trouble down the road or up the road. So I'm a little hesitant. I understand that as we go further, we'll see maybe some elevations and all that neat kind of stuff that we're going to want to see, but we don't know elevations. We don't know what it looks like, what colors are going to be. Is it going to be fluorescent green? This seems very more so than something like Menardi Plaza, when of course you have out parcels. This is one location. We should know more. And especially exactly where that drop-off location is going to be. So that's my hang up on it, but that doesn't mean I'm saying no to this. I'm saying this is a little unorthodox. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Borkowski. The chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Borkowski's comment only because, again, just for clarification, I mean, they're really just coming in for a parking lot. The building is down the road.
And I think that it's a 2-year time frame, if I'm not mistaken, per the conditions of the special use permit.
Don't they need the building to have a C of O for the parking lot?
No,
Okay.
no.
So what stops them from, and I'm just going to speak a little bit out of turn, what stops them from just not putting the building in? They'll lose the special use permit for the parking lot?
No, I think well, that's a good question. I would say they would have to come back to the town board. If the conditions of the special use permit are not met, then I would think they would have to come back to the planning board, I'm sorry, town board for updating the special use permit.
But they won't lose the special use permit if they don't put a building in.
Say that again, Craig?
They won't lose the special use permit if they don't install a building.
Well, if they put the building in, they'll be in conformance.
Right, but their intention is not to put a building in for at least 2 years. Or
Right.
close to it or someplace around there.
Mhm.
So if they don't put a building in.
Right.
What's,
If I could speak to that, it's not our intent not to put one there for 2 years. It's when we land the correct deal of which brand would go there, then we would come back and develop the building portion of that. We're not trying to avoid, trying to build something here. It is truly our intent to have this as a dealership. And it's, as soon as we can land the correct deal with the correct brand, we would do so.
and thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Let me back up here and say that I am all for this project. These apartments need to go. I can't imagine, the town has been anguished over this lot for a long time. And so this is a great fit. It's a good location. It's what it's meant to be. I'm just trying to cover the basis and say if lots of things can change, especially in this environment and ecological or environmental concepts that we have right now, or financial for that matter too. We have projects that are starting and stopping. If something, becomes cost prohibitive down the road, what stops? I can understand how life can get in the way sometimes, but if the town doesn't have a caveat, if this building never goes in, it's always just a parking lot.
Yeah, and
Can I,
that's.
can I say something?
No, go ahead, Dan.
So the special use permit provides that dealership vehicles may be stored at the property prior to completing construction of the dealership building, but only for up to 24 months after issuance of this permit. So they have 2 years from the issuance of the permit to park vehicles there, and then they don't have a permit to park vehicles
So
there.
so the special use permit would be voided in 2 years' time if they don't start a process of a building, plan wise or however that's worded.
The special permit would not allow them to store vehicles on the property for more than 24 months unless they went and got more relief from the town.
Right.
Okay, good. So there's a caveat, there's a catch to that.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I wanted to be clear on that, so thank you. I do second also Mr. Burkowski's comments on the sidewalk and the rest of the board members. I would like to see it up to the property line and extended. That would be great. I know it's to nowhere, but we have done that before. The only other thing that parked in my mind, Josh, and that's something we can discuss internally, or you can work on this throughout comments when you're getting, again, I'm not going to put a roadblock on this or vote no on it either. Something's blocking my mind with the bioretention in the southwest corner and the close proximity to the large retaining wall that's now on what did we say, Johnson? Who's the southern, is it Bob Johnson?
Bob Johnson.
What is the height of the retaining wall? I couldn't see that from the plans on that southwest corner. Do you know what that is on the other property?
Trying to see if I can find some.
Well, yeah, it looks like 10 feet.
Yeah. So is you're concerned that the drainage basically pulling that area and maybe affecting the retaining wall, the existing retaining wall along the south?
Yeah, because if I read the plans right, it just hit a concrete swale and went into a pipe, right, into the storm system. So now we're going to retain it there. We're going to hold it in a pond behind a very large retaining wall.
Well, will only be in this portion, and a majority of the stormwater will be going to this chamber system.
Right, and that's going to be geotext on the bottom. That's not for infiltration.
It'll be stone on the bottom of that
It will be, so it will be for infiltration.
Yeah.
That's a little higher up. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know any stone layers that geotech. We'd have to get some information to find out if that's going to also impact that wall. Because it seems far away.
Yeah.
That pond in the southwest corner is not very far from a very large retaining wall.
Yeah, and it will be noted that there is going to be underdrain throughout the entire bioretention area. There'll be
Underdrain's
basically,
only going to be, well, that's below it.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
4-inch.
it's 6 inches under drain, and then it's basically where the basin starts, it's 3 feet under that, which has, the specific soil media for the bioretention area, then the under drain.
The, I don't know, that just causes some concern for me. So that's just something I'd like to throw out there that we can work on going forward.
Yep, I agree.
I hate to see an issue with that large of a retaining wall that's been there pretty static for a good couple decades since Patrick Pontiac came in, all of a sudden start weeping.
Yep.
Because it's
I agree.
got a gravel layer going through it or something. So those are the comments that I had, but again, I'm applauding the project and ready to see those buildings come down. I know are they down yet, or are they still doing asbestos abatement?
We are currently doing abatement, but our plan is by mid-April to be tearing those down.
Yeah, great. Okay. That was the comments in my review, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Complete my sentence here. Very good. First of all, thank you. I want to know when the demo party is. And I want to put in my request right now for Josh Allen and Steve Tasker to be at the ribbon cutting. Sure, but just putting it out there.
I'll second that.
Yeah. And Chris, I would love to ensure that we are looking at the lighting and not having another bright spot like we have at the property to the south.
Absolutely.
I know that was kind of a surprise after the fact, and even Patrick Pontiac didn't know they were going to be that bright. So I want to make sure we're not doubling the illumination. So
On
to
the
speak over
residents to the
there.
north.
Well, I have a good construction inspector that takes care of those
All
things,
right,
so
very good.
I have no
If
doubt
I
that we'll
can
be
ask
okay.
You guys, underwater, D1, the response says the plans have been reviewed by the Monroe County Water Authority and comments are being addressed involving the blank.
Didn't get, it's involving the connection. A word may have gotten cut. Yeah, so it's basically it was just saying that, the plans have been submitted to the water authority. They usually have, specific connection notes that they want to see when you're connecting to one of their mains. And that's mainly what they're concerned about. They're also concerned with the backflow of the site. So we're working with them right now to, address all of their comments.
So are we going to see this back again to look
Yes.
at the bill? Thank you.
I would certainly make that a condition of the
Yeah.
site plan approval, if that's where we're going tonight.
Yeah, because I am very curious about the landscaping and then, of course, the look of the building, but the landscaping in this area, it's going to be a nice project. I wish it was something else other than an auto dealership, but I'm very grateful for another beautiful building in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Any comments from, oh, yes, Mr. Eckert.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I do have another question that kind of popped back in my head. Josh, can you confirm to me, what is the triangular piece due east of this project? Is that the farm or does that belong to the Southern car dealership? Do you know?
Are you talking in this area?
Yeah.
So I believe that's on site. I wish I had an aerial over this.
I can answer that question. It's part of the old, Monroe Tractor, which is now the old Patrick Pontiac.
Okay, so there's that triangular buffer between the building and the farm to the east.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what will help with some potential light spill. I don't know if I was also thinking about the lights with the farm, but there's some acreage there, so that might help with some of that too. Okay, thank you, Josh.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr.
All set,
Chairman.
Mr. Eckert?
Yes.
Thank you. Yep. Any comments from town staff?
Yeah, I do have one. My comment number 9 about the transitional buffers. And again, to me, I always thought it was zoning, but I think it really pertains to use. So you have a property to the north of you, Josh, which I believe is residential and neighbor.
Mhm.
It's zoned, I think it's commercial or industrial.
Mhm.
If that's the case, the planning board, it's a 100-foot transitional buffer that's required. However, the planning board has the right to reduce that to the side setback. So that might be something that we want to entertain tonight. If the planning board would like to, approve the reduction on the transitional buffer to the north from 100 feet to, whatever it is.
What is it now?
It's to the parking space. It's not to, or a pavement area. It's not to the building. So can you go back, Josh, to the site plan?
Yeah, so our closest spot is kind of in this corner here, 12 feet. I was gonna look down and see, I didn't have it measured on the existing conditions plan, but it's not too much more than that, I would say.
There's a hedgerow there. so
Yeah,
we Certainly
so
have that buffer to the north, but again, it is in our code.
Josh, do you have a drawing that shows existing parking lot with proposed?
I do not have it shown over each other.
Because it looks pretty close.
Yeah, looking at this is maybe, like I said, I wish I had the measuring tool on here, but I would say maybe 20 feet now existing. So we would be encroaching a little bit on that with the 12 feet, but it's not like this was, 100 feet off of the residence before. It was pretty close under existing conditions. So,
But the existing residence on the north is towards the road, which is.
yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
Um,
So that 18 feet that you're showing, to go back to your drawing,
yeah, here, that's the more critical.
do you know
guess.
how, with any difference there from existing to proposed?
To me, it almost looks exactly the same as far as the distance goes. I don't have a PDF measuring tool. Maybe I can bring it up over here. See if I can.
Would that be
So
helpful?
I guess the question is that something the board wants to entertain? Exactly.
Well, on the far east, he's got 8 more feet, it looks like. On the west, it's hard to tell if he has any. Right.
For Chris, were you talking just about the north, or we would have to do it
Yeah,
all
I
the
think
way?
it's just a north property line, because on the east side, it's, it's not agricultural because it's got that little triangular wedge as Craig pointed out. So it's really more along the north buffer, and maybe it's only for a certain portion where the residence is. I don't know if that's an active residence where somebody lives there but still, it's there.
Yeah, well, we would need that second number though, wouldn't we? In order to vote on a,
Or you could vote on what it is now. I
Oh, what-
mean, the
okay.
worst case scenario, it's 12 feet at the one corner. And then Josh, how much does it taper to again? It's bigger than that, right? Is it 18 feet?
Yeah, it's 18 feet for that. I was trying to measure here, but it seems to be in inches. So it's 0.61 inches. It'd almost be the same because if the scale is a 30 scale drawing, it's got to do quick math real quick. So it's about 18.3 feet right now at that corner.
And what is it on the proposed drawings?
18 feet.
Yeah.
So it's essentially the same, buffer or the same distance from existing pavement to the property line as opposed to the proposed pavement to the property line.
so we could vote on a buffer variance from on the north line from 100 to 18 feet, Chris, would that be?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I can put that out right now. See, does that have to be a motion, I guess, right? Chair will make a motion to extend a buffer variance on the north line there from 100 feet to 18 feet. Decrease, correct, yep, decrease the, transitional buffer from 100 feet to 18 feet. Reduction. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Eckert, thank you.
I think it's clear as a discussion item on that we have an existing pavement. It's an existing condition that we're mimicking for the most part.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Mrs. Brill, do you have that?
I will.
Take your time. You want to, might make sure we get the verbiage right.
Additional on extending the buffer variance reduction on the transitional buffer from 100 to 18. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, say nay. Okay, that motion carries. So we have the buffer variance there.
I'm with you. Is that right?
Did you say no? I'm,
Do we have to make a motion on just the setback?
But you can include it in greater motion if you want to, or you do it as a separate.
And we also want somewhere in the writing, which is what Mr. Eckert's saying, we want it to be clear that we are not cutting 100 foot down to 18. We want to basically say we're netting minus 30, because it was 18.3 already. So we want to show that it's pre-existing. So it doesn't appear that we just cut something from 100 feet to 18. So I just want that in the record somewhere.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I think so. Then, next one that comes in and we say no to.
Like you cut 100 feet down to 18, no. So we've got a third.
fair
How
enough.
do I word though? We're netting a third difference.
Say that pre-existing is only 18 and a third feet now.
Thank you.
Do we want to vote again or we're good with the vote?
Well, that's the other
We're all-
question. Do we want to do separate motions, or just make it part of the approval so you can approve it?
No, we can throw it in the whole, yeah, throw it in the whole thing. That's fine. Okay, so Mrs. Bro, you all set?
I believe so.
Mr. Record, I talked to you, right? Town staff, anything further from engineering?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mistrell, anything from your chair, sir?
No.
Okay,
I would like to make a motion 22004.
just a moment, I have to do a seeker first.
Okay, good. And when I do, I just want you guys to help ensure that I have all the verbiage correct, is where I was going, okay?
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. Okay, seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Wester Corporation. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval for the construction of a 25,000 square foot car dealership with a showroom, dial-up space, offices, and associated parking located at 4600 West Henrietta Road in a commercial B1 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a significant or sufficient second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Oop, Mr. Barley, go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Opinion of the chair, the motion carries. We have seeker. And now the chair will entertain a motion on application 22004.
I will make the motion to approve 22004 based on some conditions. One of them I have in question. Would you like me to make a comment on ensuring the importance of the rear drop-off area and ensuring that that is deemed a very important part of the drawing and ensuring that it's accessible and always open? I know we have issues elsewhere where there's sometimes cars in the way and you can't get large vehicles back there. So I just, I'm wondering if we should make that conditional in some way, shape or form to ensure that that is of the utmost importance.
Is it conditional on final approval drop-off location?
Yeah, making sure we're seeing, exactly.
Yep.
In addition, extending, gosh, a buffer variance, reduction of transition buffer, 100 to 18 feet. However, noting that this is an existing at 18 1/3 feet now.
Good word, a little different.
Sounds correct.
If I'd say something on that, I know it's 18 in this corner, but I just didn't know if we're granted an 18-foot, a reduction to 18 foot. It is 12 feet on the eastern side, and I didn't know because I believe it should be along the entire property line that would affect. So I don't know if it would make more sense to do it to the 12 feet so that encapsulates the entire parking area along the northern property line.
How about if it's to accept the transitional buffer per the plan and from 18 to 12 feet as shown on the plan, knowing that again, 18 feet is what is existing.
Is the 12-foot existing as well?
I don't believe so. I think it's
20.
kind of that consistent. It looks like to be a consistent around 18, 20 feet.
Okay, so
along the
20 to 12 there. Yeah, that is the big
Yeah.
difference.
The only one here is this building. This building looks a little close. I can maybe get a measurement there.
So can we approve the traditional buffer as shown on the site plan? It's very in depth from 18 to 12 feet. Because if we say 12, it's 12 for the whole thing too.
Mhm.
I would still note in there that reducing the 100-foot buffer to
The very in depth of 18 and 12.
the dimensions shown on the site plan, recognizing that the current buffer is
That okay, Josh?
I didn't hear the verbiage, I guess.
Okay.
Basically said what you were recommending.
Okay. Yep. Nope. That works for me.
We're going to reference the plan.
Okay. That works.
And
So I didn't mean to make it more complicated, but
No, I think you made it easier. I think.
yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Yep, one moment. Do we want to also add the sidewalk in there?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
I think we want to make it a condition too of the site plan coming back for the building.
for the,
elevations.
yep. So,
And the site plan's got to come back. You guys know that. And are you agreeable to making the sidewalk go to the end of your property?
We are agreeable to that.
Perfect.
thank you. Okay, so Mr. Borkowski had the second, correct?
With all those conditions.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Gentlemen, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Thank you very
everyone.
much for your time tonight. Good night.
We'll look forward to this.
Yep.
Okay. One more item on the agenda this evening, application number 22005, Dish Wireless co-location at 2007 West Henrietta Road. The final site plan approval for the installation of a Dish Wireless antenna. For the installation of Dish Wireless antennas on the existing tower located at Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road in the commercial B1 zoned district. John Andrews, are you with us this evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, I'm John Andrews. I'm the zoning manager for Centerline Communications on behalf of Dish Wireless. I'm at 10130 Donley Drive in Columbia, Maryland, 21046, and I appreciate the Zoom call. It's a 185-foot tall tower. Dish wants to install 3 antennas on the tower at the centerline elevation of 145 feet. At the base of the tower, there exists a fenced compound. Dish wishes to install a 5x7 metal platform with equipment cabinets on it. There will be an ice bridge that runs from the platform to the tower. There's been no new impervious surface. No increase in tower height is proposed, and no expansion of the compound is proposed. I have read the report or the comments of Mr. Martin, and he had 9 comments, I believe. The only question I had was item C recommends a letter of credit be required, and I didn't understand that because one of the prior conditions was a surety bond. So but that's the only question I have. Do you have any questions? It's a fairly simple proposal.
Yep, agreed. I will turn it over to Mr. Martin for his comment.
Yeah, I think as far as the letter of credit, since this is such a minor application, and we are going to get a surety bond for the removal of the equipment, that I think we can waive that requirement.
Thank
Very
you.
good. John, you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, the chair will recognize Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only comment, don't we usually get a engineering report?
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, I mean, we did get a structural analysis. I think some of the stuff was sent after the fact, but
Oh, yeah, because I don't see it in we have a passing structural analysis.
we do.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see it in my packet, and that's what I was just looking
It
for.
didn't come in the packet. I got it late, and I sent it as soon as I got it.
Okay. That was the only comment I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Borkowski.
I am all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mr. Barley.
So in lieu of the letter of credit, they're gonna get a surety bond? Is that what's gonna happen?
Right, and that would be for the removal of the equipment if it's no longer deemed necessary.
Okay, thanks. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Chair will recognize Mr. List.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Mr. Mistrell, anything from? No, very good. Town staff, engineering.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Our last seeker of the night. Seeker review indicates the action under consideration is an unlisted action as per section 617.7 C1 VIII. The Henrietta Planning Board, as lead agency, has determined that the proposed action described below will not have a significant effect on the environment and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be required. The action under consideration is a site plan application by Dish Wireless LLC. It is an unlisted action and will not require a conditioned negative declaration. The purpose of this application is for final site plan approval for the installation of Dish Wireless antennas on the existing tower located at Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road in a commercial B1 zoned district. All relevant areas of environmental concern were identified. Evaluation and examination were carefully made in relation of the existing conditions versus the proposed site improvements. It has been determined that there will be no adverse environmental effect as a result of the proposed action. I, James Gruner, therefore make the motion that we make a negative declaration and that the chairman be authorized to sign the statement of environmental significance. Do I have a
Second.
sufficient- Who was that? Mr. Eckert?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dress them up, but you can't take them out.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We have a seeker. Chair will entertain a motion on application 22005.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve application 22-005 Dish Wireless co-location.
Thank you, Mr. Barley. Do I have a sufficient second, please?
Second.
Mr. List, right? Hey, I'm hearing better at the end of the night. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations, John.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
I
thank you
appreciate
for-
your time and attention.
Thank you for staying late with us.
Have a great day.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Now, Mr. Martin, do you have anything for the, go to the order at this point before?
Turn on my mic. For those of you who are wondering about the next March, we have Riverton Parcel A, which is called Fairways on the Green, no. So that is coming forward for preliminary, so we'll have a public hearing. I'm guessing that we'll hopefully see the final for Riverton Parcel E. And I think there's a cell tower in there as well, another co-locator. And, the one that was tabled, so 345 River Meadow Drive. You saw the flurry of emails from that. So it looks to me like Mr. Spahn of Atlas Construction is going to meet with the residents to see if they can come up with some type of compromise. As far as the deed covenant or deed restriction, we as a town couldn't do anything about that. but certainly the residents could. So I think he wants to try to work things out with the residents before he comes back.
Good.
And that's
Very
all I
good.
have.
Okay, Mrs. Brill? Your motion to, what was that?
8:31.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Is Fairways at River, that's Bernie's property, right? Is that his project?
Yeah.
Jacob Angelo? 130 less.
You know, I'll put it with my, or actually,
Nope,
Patty,
that's
all
okay,
of our
because it's all
stuff
they're
can,
going with you. So that's perfect.
here, Patty, thanks. Or up, yeah,
Who should I give them to give to Heather?
yeah, I'll put them over there. I've got a paper clip. I'll just put them together and, yeah,
No.
thanks.
Forgive me, what are we talking about? The flood.
Where is that?
Wow. Wow. Holy cow. There are some newer homes that have water problems like that too. Just they didn't grade it right. You know? Yeah. Right. That's what I was thinking. Yep, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah, they got a cracked garage. Yeah, and so the backyard floods and it comes into the damn garage. It's crazy. Man, that's a nightmare. You don't work in. Uh-huh. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's tough.
So Riverton parcel E, it's.
Yes, sir.